Chapter 2141. At the moment that person rose into the sky, he sadly discovered that he was thrown to the left side of the cruise ship by Charlie, and the ship in which he came was on the right side of the cruise ship. Moreover, Charlie's hand was so powerful that he threw him for more than 10 meters in one fell swoop. The whole person fell directly into the cold water with a huge parabola. The location here is not far from the open sea, the water depth has reached thousands of meters, and it is winter, and the sea is bitterly cold. When he fell into the sea with a thump, the impact itself made him feel pain. Immediately afterward, the clothes on his body were completely soaked in cold water, and all of a sudden he felt like an ice cellar. In this case, he could only struggle desperately, trying to swim back to his boat. However, the sea was very windy and he was just in the downwind direction, so no matter how hard he swam, he still failed to narrow the distance between him and the cruise ship by even a few meters. Just when he was desperate, there were a few more thumps on the sea. It turned out that the few people left were thrown into the sea one by one, like dumplings. The lives of these people are far worse than the first one. After all, the first kid was not beaten and was thrown down. But other people didn't have such good luck. They were first beaten and wounded by Charlie, and then thrown into the sea, which basically lost half their lives. The remaining half-life is not enough in such cold water. Several people screamed and thumped desperately, for fear of sinking directly to the bottom of the sea and losing their lives here. On the ship carrying Ruoli, the captain and several sailors were shocked. What happened? Ruoli led the team, a total of 7 people went to fight, but 6 were thrown into the sea. The sailor asked at this moment, "Captain, do we want to save them?" The captain said with an indifferent expression, "Save them. Don't forget our mission. Focus all your energy on Miss Sue. The lives of these people are not worth mentioning." When the sailor heard this, he had to shut his mouth with interest. At this time, on the deck of another ship, Ruoli's heart has been cold for more than half. She really didn't expect Charlie to have such abnormal strength. Moreover, not only the strength is abnormal, but the working style is also abnormal. He actually threw all her subordinates into the sea. Is this a human job? As the saying goes, if you want to kill, you have to kill them. Their strength is not good. It doesn't matter if you kill them directly, but why throw them into the sea? Thinking of this, Ruoli couldn't help but worry about herself. In this way, she was probably not Charlie's opponent. If she was thrown into the sea later, wouldn't it be a shame? Ruoli didn't doubt her abilities, she believed that even if she was thrown into the sea, she could easily swim back to the boat. It's just that she grew up so old and had never suffered such a loss, so she couldn't accept it for a while. At this moment, Charlie had already thrown all the 6 young men into the sea, clapped his hands, and said with a look of contempt, "Is the Sioux family's dog so capable? If the Sioux family's strength is so poor, then I think it should almost give up the seat of the first family." When Ruoli heard this, she was immediately furious. The thing she can't stand most is that someone dares to be disrespectful to the Sioux family. Although she was still an unrecognized illegitimate daughter, she felt that the blood of the Sioux family was flowing in her bones. Therefore, in any case, don't let others blaspheme the Sioux family. So, she angrily reprimanded, "Boy! Dare to be disrespectful to the Sioux family, you are looking for death." Charlie sneered, "Why? This is disrespect to the Sioux family. I tell you, sooner or later, I will let Chengfeng and Zynn kneel down in front of me and beg me to forgive them." Quote. Ruoli felt a buzz in her head in this one. Chengfeng is her grandfather, and Zynn is her biological father. Since she was a child, under the indoctrination of her mother, she has a fascination with her father. Therefore, at this time, she could not wait to torture Charlie on the spot in order to avenge him for insulting her father. At this moment, she took out a sharp black blade dagger from her waist, and said coldly, "Boy, today I must make you die without a place to be buried." Saying it, Ruoli yelled and rushed towards Charlie. This time, she no longer wanted to analyze in her heart, between Charlie and herself, who is strong and who is weak, who wins and who loses. She has been dazzled by anger. She just wants to take advantage of Charlie early and defend the dignity of her father and the Sioux family. However, Charlie is something she can handle. Seeing her holding a dagger and rushing forward, Charlie stood still and waited for her. The closer Ruoli is to Charlie, the faster the speed. She has gathered all her internal energy on her right arm, and with the sharp blade of titanium alloy in her hand, even if it is a car, he can be cut off by her, not to mention a flesh and blood body. Moreover, she knew very well in her heart that the more internal energy she gathered, the greater the potential energy of this knife. And the faster you run, the greater the inertia of your body. Adding the two together, the strength of this blow would be difficult for the gods to resist. Therefore, at this moment, she was ready to kill Charlie with one blow. But, the moment she rushed to him, a sudden change suddenly appeared. Charlie did not step back, nor did he dodge, but directly stretched out a hand, and easily grasped Ruoli's wrist. Ruoli felt as if her wrist was completely fixed, unable to move at all, and her heart was shocked. And her worldview was almost completely subverted at this moment. She learned the peak martial arts of the He family since she was a child. When she was 18 years old, she was already the strongest among the younger generation of the He family. Moreover, in the entire He family, her strength is second only to several elders including Grandpa. Her mother, Roma, is not Ruoli's opponent because of the loss of an arm. This shows that her strength is by no means comparable to ordinary people. At this time, she was extremely horrified, and said in her heart, "I just made such a full blow, even if the strongest grandpa of the He family is here, it is impossible to resist it so easily. Grandpa must at least go all out to fight my strength, for this blow is completely removed. But, my full blow, in front of this guy, is like a child's play. This guy just moved his hands and completely resolved my thunderous offensive and brought the whole offensive to an abrupt end. How capable is he?" Ruoli knew that the overall strength of her attack was not weaker than the bullet that came out of the chamber. Charlie stretched out his hand to block all her attacks. It was equivalent to stretched out his hand to pinch the bullet that came from a rapid shot. Therefore, Ruoli stretched out inwardly and exclaimed, This is simply not something a human can do. What magical powers does this man in front of me have?" Rarely in her heart, she became flustered, and blurted out, Who are you?" "Me." Charlie smiled indifferently. "Say a word without blowing or pretending. I am someone you and your entire Sioux family can't afford to offend." Charlie now has nothing to fear. Neither the Wade family nor the Sioux family could make him fear at all. With his strength, it may not be difficult to take the heads of Chengfeng and Zynn among 10,000 people. The reason why he hasn't acted to remove the two sus right away is mainly because he wants to wait for the opportunity to give Sioux family a complete crush. Not only are the people who are stronger than the Sioux family, but they also have an absolute advantage over the Sioux family in the industry. Only in this way can the Sioux family be able to bow down in a true sense. However, Ruoli didn't know Charlie's depth at all. She just felt that the strength of this man was terrible to abnormal. However, even so, he could not be the opponent of the entire Sioux family. But Ruoli was also very clear in her eccentricity. Now that it doesn't make any sense to say this. The most important thing at the moment is how can I escape from this abnormal man? She is not afraid of death. However, when she thought of her father spending a lot of energy, financial resources, material resources and manpower in order to rescue her, her inner desire to survive instantly reached its peak. So she looked at Charlie and said, "If you let me go, our previous grievances can be wiped out. Otherwise, the Sioux family will definitely not let you go." Charlie smiled and said, "The people of the Sioux family won't let me go. To tell you the truth, even if the people of the Sioux family don't find me, I will go to them." Ruoli's expression was startled, and she blurted out and asked, You have an enmity with the Sioux family?" Charlie nodded. "Of course. And it's an unshakable enemy." Ruoli was in ashes. She felt that since the young man in front of her had an antagonism with the Sioux family, he naturally couldn't let her go. It seems that she is going to die here today. Thinking of this, she thought of her parents who were still waiting for her to return home, her eyes filled with tears. Immediately, she looked at Charlie and said seriously, "Since my skills are not as good as humans, you can kill or slash as you please." Charlie smiled lightly. "Don't worry, I won't kill you." "What?" Ruoli exclaimed. "You won't kill me?" Charlie nodded. "You committed a capital crime in Japan, and now you are an escaped prisoner. As long as I hand you over to the Japanese judicial department, they will naturally sentence you to death." Speaking of this, Charlie frowned suddenly, and immediately looked at her with cold eyes. He looked her up and down, and asked, "The Japanese judicial department hates you so much. The Su family can save you in this situation. It shouldn't cost less, right?" Ruoli was afraid that he would notice something, so she avoided his eyes and dared not answer. She was afraid that Charlie knew that she was the illegitimate daughter of Zynn. In that way, not only might he use her as a bargaining chip to threaten her father and the Su family, but he might even make her identity public. Although she hopes that her father can recognize her identity, she also knows that her father is the son of Su's family after all, and he has the original wife and a pair of children. If her identity is exposed at once, it will be very bad for her father's reputation and family happiness will have a big negative impact. Ruoli only wanted to share his worries for her father all her life, and never thought of causing trouble to her father, so at this time, it was panic deep in her heart for fear that Charlie would notice it. Seeing Ruoli avoiding his eyes, and at the same time shutting his mouth, he realized that something was wrong in his heart. He sighed with emotion. "You are now the #1 serious criminal in Japan. In this case, they can still get you. When it comes out, the Su family will have to spend at least 1 billion yuan, or even more, to achieve freedom for you." Speaking of this, Charlie stared at Ruoli, and said coldly, "The style of the Su family, I have also heard that the current patriarch Chengfeng is not a generous person. He cannot be willing to spend so much money to save one servant. Even if you do have some strength, you are definitely not worth so much money." At this point, Charlie deliberately stretched the tone and sneered, "Unless, you are not a subordinate of the Su family." Although Ruoli is very strong, her social experience and emotional intelligence do not quite pass the test. Hearing this, the whole person is obviously a little flustered. She said, "No, not as you expected. I am indeed a servant of the Su family." Charlie sneered, "It seems that you do lack some social experience. The look in your eyes has given me a clear signal." Ruoli asked in a panic, "Ah. What signal?" Charlie smiled and said, "I guessed the signal right." After that, he asked coldly, "Who are you from the Su family?" "I have investigated you, Ruoli, the subordinate of the Su family, and the bodyguard of Zynn. Although you also have the surname Su, you are not in the Su family. What is the relationship?" Ruoli nodded hurriedly, "Yes. I am indeed just a subordinate of the Su family." Charlie waved his hand. "No," I said, "the Su family can't do such a big fight for a subordinate. Therefore, your identity as a subordinate of the Su family is not the key to let the Su family save you." Speaking of this, Charlie stared at Ruoli's somewhat horrified eyes, and said lightly, "So, you must have another identity." Ruoli shook her head repeatedly in shock, and said in a begging voice, I really don't have any other identity. If you want to kill me quickly, don't humiliate me like this, okay?" Charlie saw her nervous performance in his eyes, and laughed coldly. "The Su family values you so much, and you are so sincerely defending the Su family. This performance has obviously surpassed the feelings between the master and servant. Could it be? Could it be that you and the Su family are related by blood? After all, your surname is Su." Ruoli shook her head desperately. "Although my surname is Su, it is just a coincidence. I came to Su's house when I was 18 years old. My main job is to be Zyn Su's bodyguard, occasionally with Su. The other subordinates in the family perform some relatively secret tasks. For example, I am responsible for leading the execution of the killing of Matsumoto Maki. What I told you is the truth, I really have no other identity." Charlie smiled and said, "The better you are, the more you explain, the more you want to cover it up in my opinion. If you are really just a subordinate of the Su family and you are ready to die for the master. And you don't want my life, but you are here to explain so much to me. Obviously, you're arguing for the Su family." Having said that, Charlie teased, "Let me guess, are you the illegitimate daughter of someone from the Su family? That's why they tried so hard to save you, right?" Ruoli turned pale with fright. She shook her head desperately and even threw out her tears. She choked and said, "I'm really not the illegitimate daughter of the Su family, please believe me." Charlie ignored her, shook his head, and muttered, "Whose illegitimate daughter will you be?" "Chengfeng. It's unlikely. Chengfeng is an old dog who is about to die. He should not have the ability to raise a young woman. Little girl, besides, if you are really his illegitimate daughter, he will never arrange for you to protect Zyn. In that case, Zynn may find out at any time. Speaking of this, Charlie looked up and down Ruoli and asked with a smile, "So, you should be the illegitimate daughter of Zynn. Zynn simply kept you by his side as a bodyguard in order to conceal you from others. Close contact, without being suspected by others. Am I right?" Charlie just speculated, and by the way, observed Ruoli's reaction. Unexpectedly, as soon as these words came out, Ruoli's body trembled uncontrollably. At this moment, Charlie immediately understood in his heart that he was right. This girl is the illegitimate daughter of Zynn. No wonder the Su family was willing to spend so much effort to rescue her from the Japanese judicial department. It turns out that this girl is the flesh and blood of Zynn. Interesting. Ruoli was already shocked at this time. She didn't expect that the man in front of her would guess her true identity in such a short time. You know, the entire Su family, there are only two people who know her true identity. One is her biological father, Zynn, and the other is her grandfather, Chengfeng. Even Zhufei and Jiu didn't know that the girl who had been acting as bodyguards by their side was actually their sister. And Zinn's original wife, even more ignorant. Ruoli was very afraid of the man in front of her and stabbed this matter out. In that case, her father's reputation would suffer a huge blow. Thinking of this, she immediately had a plan to die deep in her heart, and she thought to herself sadly, "As long as I live, I will be Zinn's daughter. No matter how I deny it, his blood is flowing in my body. But, if I die, no one can claim that I am the daughter of Zynn. Even if this man exposes my identity, because I'm dead, my father can firmly deny my identity. It seems that only when I am dead can I become less of a liability, and can keep the secret of my identity forever." At this point, she immediately said to Charlie pleadingly, "Please, kill me. Or you can let go of my hand and let me end it by myself." Charlie smiled and said, "How is it possible? Not only will I not kill you, but I also will not let you commit suicide." Ruoli asked in horror, "What are you going to do?" Charlie smiled and said, "Little girl, don't be afraid, I will take you home. You must be very wrong for so many years of hiding the secret of your identity. Don't worry, I will help you get back the identity of Su family. Let you enjoy everything you should have enjoyed long ago." "No." Ruoli immediately broke down and cried, crying in silence, "I have killed countless people and committed serious crimes. You should treat the people as the people and give me a happy." With that, she tried her best to break free from Charlie's hand. However, Charlie's hand seemed to be frozen, and she couldn't shake it at all. Seeing her desperately seeking death, Charlie became more and more interesting, and deliberately ridiculed, "If a beautiful girl like you is dead, it would be a shame. How could I do this kind of cruelty and brutality?" Ruoli looked at Charlie and choked with horror. "What do you want to do?" Charlie smiled and said, "I think it is very simple, take you back to the country, disclose your identity, and let your dad give you an upright name, isn't that good?" "I don't want." Ruoli's tears became a thread, and her other hand began to desperately try to break Charlie's fingers. Her eyes were aggrieved and horrified, and said, "I'm doing this good, I don't want to be the eldest lady of the Su family, I don't want to cause them any trouble, I beg you, kill me, and then throw me into the sea." Charlie asked back, "Why? Your father gave birth to you and asked him to admit that your identity is justified. Why would it cause him trouble in your eyes?" Although Ruoli was in tears, she still said stubbornly, "I don't want to cause trouble to him, nor do I want to cause trouble to my mother." Charlie smacked his lips. "Tisk, you are really strange. You can kill dozens of people for the Su family without blinking, but now you don't want to cause any trouble to the Su family. How can you be so selfless to the Su family? Where is this dedication coming from?" Ruoli was speechless when asked by Charlie. The reason for this dedication is because of the brainwashing education she has experienced since she was a child. She firmly believes that she should give everything for the Su family and her father, even her life. However, in this case, she naturally couldn't tell Charlie. So she could only continue begging in tears, "Sir, although my life is very short, I have hardly begged anyone. Today I beg you once, please give me a good time and stop torturing me, okay? Please." Charlie shook his head and said coldly, "I'm sorry, you can't die now." At this moment, in the cockpit of the other ship, the captain and sailor were already stunned. They really couldn't understand why Ruoli only had a trick with that man, and she stood still and couldn't move as if she had been cursed. Moreover, she nodded, shook her head for a while, and cried bitterly for a while. To the people on the boat, this scene was a bit too magical. The captain immediately took out the satellite phone and called a domestic number. On the phone, he explained what happened here in detail, and then heard the order on the phone. He nodded hurriedly and said, "Okay, I get it. I will do what you want." After that, he hung up the phone and said coldly, "Hurry up and notify Mr. Kylo that he has a new order." A sailor by his side quickly turned around and ran to the bottom cabin of the cruise ship. There is a locked door in the bottom cabin. He knocked on the door and shouted, "Mr. Kylo, the captain asked me to tell you that the master has a new order." A man's gloomy voice came from the room, "Okay, I will come up now." As soon as the voice fell, the door was opened. A middle-aged man with triangular eyes and a hooked nose carries a specially customized heavy composite crossbow in his hand. The composite crossbow is the most powerful of all crossbow weapons, and the power of a single crossbow even exceeds that of a gun. Professional hunters like to use heavy composite crossbows to hunt large prey, such as wild boars with thick skins. Ordinary pistols and light rifles, bullets hit the wild boar. It is difficult to penetrate the wild boar's skin covered with pine oil and mud, and even the bullet may refract on the wild boar's skin. However, if the heavy composite crossbow is used well, it can shoot the wild boar through with one arrow. Its power is not inferior to the heavy sniper rifle. What's even more powerful is that the composite crossbow has a long range and high accuracy. When paired with a sniper scope, it can be used for long-distance sniping, and it is no less than a sniper rifle. The composite crossbow is not only powerful and accurate, but also has a great advantage, that is, the sound is extremely low, and it is especially suitable for assassination. More importantly, most countries in the world are gun-banned countries and have strict legal restrictions. It is even more difficult for ordinary people to get a pistol, let alone a sniper rifle. However, the composite crossbow does not have so many restrictions. For example, the composite crossbow that this person holds in his hand is a reinforced composite crossbow used in sports competitions. It is extremely powerful and can even pierce a bulletproof vest. A wonderful weapon for assassination. This person carried this composite crossbow and stepped onto the top cockpit. The captain said to him immediately, "Mr. Kylo, hurry up, immediately kill the man on the opposite boat." The man glanced at Charlie and Ruoli on the opposite boat, with a sneer at the corner of his mouth, and said indifferently, "Isn't this the cooking target who is still motionless at such a close distance?" Having said that, he immediately opened a window and pointed the crosshair of the sniper mirror on the composite crossbow at the left temple of Charlie. The power of a heavy composite crossbow is enough to penetrate a person's head at such a short distance. In addition, this Mr. Kylo is himself a top killer who is extremely good at killing people with this weapon, so he has absolute certainty that he can kill Charlie with a single blow. He debuted in the assassin field for 15 years, and has never missed a target with the crossbow. Therefore, after aiming at Charlie with extremely fast speed, he immediately pulled the trigger without hesitation. The bowstring of the composite crossbow made a humming sound, and then a crossbow arrow made of titanium alloy and carbon fiber galloped straight to Charlie's temple. The speed of the composite crossbow exceeds 100 meters per second, not to mention this heavy composite crossbow is a modified killing weapon, the speed is almost close to 200 meters per second. At such a short distance, the speed left for the opponent to react is no more than 0.5 seconds. In other words, the opponent didn't even have a chance to turn his head and take a look. Therefore, Kylo has already made his mind and regards Charlie as a dead person. He was even ready to witness Charlie's head burst open with his own eyes. Moreover, he knows very well that the arrow of this crossbow bolt is very poisonous. Even if it only cuts the opponent's skin, the opponent will definitely die. However, what he never expected was that Charlie didn't even look here, just casually stretched out his hand and grabbed the swift crossbow arrow. How is this possible? Kylo was already stunned. The captain was also stunned, and blurted out, "Mr. Kylo, am I dazzled? The crossbow arrow you just shot is what that guy is holding in his hand." Kylo suddenly sweated coldly. Yes, this guy is simply a pervert. I have never seen such a strong person. After that, Kylo hurriedly asked, Who is he? The captain was full of horror. I don't know. I just received an order from the master to tell you to kill him. Kylo gritted his teeth. I will shoot him another arrow. I don't believe he can catch it. This composite crossbow has 2 sets of bowstrings, which can be used for 2 crossbow arrows for continuous shooting. After the 2 crossbow arrows are fired, the bowstring must be restringed. For such a heavy crossbow arrow, the bowstring is not an easy task. Even if it is operated by Kylo, it will take at least 10 seconds. Therefore, the remaining crossbow arrow is almost his last chance. At this moment, the captain suddenly stopped him and blurted out, Mr. Kylo, if you can't get rid of him, start the emergency plan. Are you absolutely sure that you can kill him with this last arrow? Kylo froze for a moment, hesitated for a moment, shook his head and said, I don't. The captain said with a grim expression, Mr. Kylo, if you are not absolutely sure, then implement the emergency plan. Kylo nodded lightly and said, okay, then implement the emergency plan. At this time, on the deck of the other ship, Ruoli saw Charlie grasp a crossbow arrow that broke through the air with one hand, and the whole person was already in shock. She exclaimed in her heart, is this person a human? The strength of this crossbow arrow is stronger than my previous strike, and it is much faster than me. He can even watch it. How can he grab it with one hand without looking? What level is this man's martial arts? At this moment, Charlie saw Ruoli's expression in shock, and smiled. Lightly. What? Do you feel that your worldview has been subverted? Ruoli nodded gently. Although she was unwilling to admit her failures and shortcomings, the strength of the man in front of her was indeed incredible, and he had completely exceeded her knowledge of martial arts. Charlie sneered and turned to look at the ship opposite. The killer with the composite crossbow in the boat was startled by the look in his eyes. He hesitated for a while, then whispered to the captain, no matter whether my arrow can be shot or not, you must drive the boat to its maximum horsepower as soon as possible, and leave at the fastest speed. This man is too strong, the farther we are from him, the better. The captain immediately put his hand on the engine power gear, and at the same time said to the chief mate next to him, after Mr. Kylo shoots the second crossbow arrow, you will immediately fill the rudder to the left, and I will maximize the horsepower at the same time. The first officer blurted out immediately, I understand. Okay. The captain nodded, and looked at Kylo aside nervously. Who took a deep breath, then immediately pulled the trigger and shot a cold arrow. Afterwards, he immediately shouted, withdraw. Withdraw quickly. The captain and first officer immediately began to cooperate, controlling the ship's full rudder to the left and preparing to escape at full speed. At the moment when he shot the crossbow arrow, Charlie already felt that the crossbow arrow was coming. He wanted to reach out and grab it, but suddenly gave up. Because he noticed that the crossbow arrow was not coming at him. Instead, it rushed to Ruoli beside him. The next moment, Ruoli suddenly felt a sharp pain in her thigh. She screamed in pain, and looked down. Her right leg had been completely penetrated by a crossbow arrow. The severe pain made her clench her teeth, and her heart was full of surprise. Why would he shoot a crossbow arrow into my leg? As soon as she thought of this, she immediately felt that there was a powerful energy flowing from the wound throughout her body along her blood vessels. She is a woman of martial arts, has a certain internal strength, and suddenly realized that this kind of energy is nothing but poison that can kill people. Her face suddenly turned pale. However, after a while, she felt relieved again. In the hands of the man in front of me, I am a bit unable to survive or beg to die. No matter what, I will soon die by poison. In this way, my identity can never be made public, and it won't cause trouble to Dad. Thinking of this, her face suddenly had a relieved expression. Seeing this, Charlie couldn't help but frown, and said coldly, you want to die so? Don't worry, the more you want to die, the less I will let you die so easily. Having said that, immediately grabbed her wrist and fingertips to penetrate a trace of spiritual energy from his veins to remove the poison in her body, and at the same time temporarily seal all her meridians, making her completely immobile. After that, he threw the first crossbow arrow in his hand to the ship that was about to escape. That Kylo was staring at the two of them, wanting to see when Ruoli is poisoned and die, but he didn't expect a black shadow to fly in front of him. Immediately afterwards, he felt a sharp pain in his forehead. The next second, the crossbow bolt shot through his cap, killing him on the spot. When the captain and other crew members in the cabin saw this scene, they were all frightened. The captain convulsed and pushed the power control stick tightly. He blurted out and shouted, "Why is this ship moving so slow?" The first officer held the rudder and shouted hoarsely, "Captain, the rudder is full left. It is difficult to speed up when turning on the spot. Just wait for it to turn." Just when the ship desperately wanted to turn to escape, Charlie took a few steps on the deck and suddenly jumped, and the person had already jumped onto the opponent's deck. At this time, a crew member twitched in shock. "Captain, that person jumped onto our boat." The people on the boat were so scared that they screamed again and again. At this moment, there is no expert on the ship who can still fight Charlie. Ruoli was hit by a poisoned arrow, fearing that she would die soon. The remaining Sioux clan's men were all thrown into the sea by Charlie, and some of them had already sunk into the water because of lack of physical strength. The rest is that Kylo. He himself was a killer hidden in the boat, and even Ruoli didn't know his existence. However, he is now completely dead. The only people left in the cabin, apart from the captain and chief mate, are just a few sailors. They had never practiced martial arts, so they were not Charlie's opponent. Just when everyone didn't know what to do, the door of the cockpit was suddenly kicked open by Charlie. In the next second, he had already stepped in. The legs of the sailors were frightened, and one of them knelt on the ground with a thud, crying and begging, "Brother, please. I'm a crew member of the Sioux family. I haven't done anything that hurts the truth." Several other people also knelt on the ground and kowtowed, begging, "Yes, brother, we are ordinary crew members, we don't know other things." Charlie ignored the plea of these people and asked, "Who is the captain?" The crowd hurriedly pointed their fingers at the same person. The captain tremblingly raised his hand and said, Big brother, I am the captain." Charlie nodded and said coldly, "Return the boat back, and then turn off the engine." "Okay, elder brother." The captain dared not make a trip, and hurriedly ordered the first officer, "Right full rudder." The first officer hurriedly did so, and the two of them posted the boat back towards the boat Charlie was sailing on. Afterwards, Charlie said coldly, "Everyone, put your head in your hands, line up on the deck and climb to the opposite ship." Seeing that so many people had died, how could they dare to disobey Charlie's words at this time, so they immediately hugged their heads with both hands and walked out of the cockpit in a line. Under the leadership of the captain, everyone climbed over the railing and carefully climbed onto the deck of another ship. Ruoli was still standing here at this time, unable to move. But fortunately, there is Charlie's aura, so she has no life threatening for the time being. At this moment, Charlie pulled the captain in front of Ruoli and said, "Come on, tell me, why did that guy just use a crossbow arrow to kill the beauty next to me?" The captain's expression was tangled, and then he said, "This. I don't know. Maybe it was accidentally shot crooked." Charlie sneered and said, "He accidentally shot it crooked. The man's first arrow came straight to my temple, with almost no deviation, and the accuracy was extremely high. Why would the second arrow accidentally shot crooked?" Although Ruoli did not say a word, she wanted to know the answer in her heart. The captain hurriedly said, "Big brother, I don't know what's going on with him. I was just following the order to sail, I don't know anything else." Charlie nodded. "You don't know, right? Very good, then go to the sea to feed the sharks." After speaking, Charlie immediately grabbed his collar with one hand and directly lifted him up, hanging his legs in the air. The captain urinated his pants on the spot in shock and cried out, "Big brother, please. I say it all." Afterwards, the captain choked and said, "I have always been on a cruise for the master. This time, I was sent to Japan on a mission by him. Originally, the master did not intend to save Miss Sue back tonight, because once Miss Sue is rescued, not only it will cost a lot of money and will leave a lot of trouble, causing the Japanese government to have a long-term grievance with the Sue family, so he deliberately set up a plan." Charlie frowned and asked, "What plot is set?" The captain said truthfully, "According to the plan, after sailing tonight, I will sail directly to the designated location on the high seas. The Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force has already laid ambush there. Once the ship reaches the designated location, they will immediately carry out encirclement and arrest. Take Miss Sue back." Charlie was even more surprised. "Catch her back? It took so much effort to rescue her, why did it take so much effort to catch her back? The captain shook his head and said, "This. I don't know about this. I only know that the master ordered us." Charlie asked again, "What happened to that crossbowman just now?" The captain hurriedly said, "The crossbowman's name is Kylo, he is the famous cold weapon king in the killer world. The master meant to treat him as an emergency plan." Charlie asked again, "What does the emergency plan mean? You'd better explain it to me at once, otherwise, I will kill you." The captain cried out in fright, "I will say it. I will say it all. I made it clear all the time. The emergency plan is, if the self-defense force fails to catch Miss Sue, then let Mr. Kylo kill her with the crossbow, and then hand over the body to the self-defense force." As soon as these words came out, Ruoli's face was pale immediately. She said with an incredulous face, "What did you say? Master's emergency plan is to kill me." "That's right." The captain nodded and said seriously, "The original plan was to go directly to the predetermined location after boarding the ship, but you suddenly wanted to hunt down this big brother. The master agreed, so our route changed temporarily. The master called me specifically to explain to me, let me take you to kill this eldest brother first, and then sail you to the predetermined place and meet with the Japanese self-defense forces. He also said that in any uncontrollable circumstances, Mr. Kylo must be asked to execute the emergency plan and kill you. It is said that this is the only way to prevent future troubles." With tears in her eyes, Ruoli desperately shook her head and said, "Impossible. You must be talking nonsense. How could the Lord let you kill me? I am his." Speaking of this, she realized that she had said something wrong and immediately closed her mouth. In fact, what she thought in her heart was that she was Chengfeng's granddaughter, how could he kill her? Besides, even if he really had this heart, her father Zynn couldn't agree. Seeing Ruoli's unbelief, the captain said quickly, "Miss Sue, I really didn't talk nonsense. Master did explain that we must not let you leave Japan alive. Even if you die, we will have to hand over the body only to the Japanese self-defense forces." Ruoli murmured, "It's impossible. It's impossible. It's not logical, and there's no reason." Charlie sneered at the side, "Why is this impossible? You must die, so the Sue family will not be in huge trouble. You must know that you are a serious prisoner in the eyes of all Japan. If anyone saves you, then even if it is against the whole of Japan, even if the Sue family is as rich as the enemy, they absolutely cannot withstand such pressure." Ruoli roared angrily, "You are talking nonsense." "I'm talking nonsense." Charlie sneered, "Although I don't know how the old Sue family planned, I believe they must be the truth." Ruoli shook her head and said, "I don't believe it. I don't believe a word they say." Charlie said calmly, "It doesn't matter if you don't believe it, I naturally have a way to make you believe." After that, he looked at the captain and asked, "How did you contact the old Sue family?" The captain hurriedly said, "It's a satellite phone." Charlie asked again, "Where is the satellite phone?" "In the pocket inside my clothes." Charlie ordered, "You call the old man now and tell him Ruoli has been killed by me. Listen to what he says." Please subscribe and like to follow the next chapter. Thank you.